Hello, my name is Don Carson. The title of this talk, The God Who Grants New Birth, finds its genesis in a conversation that the Lord Jesus had with a first-century Jewish scholar and legislator called Nicodemus. The point of the exchange, as we'll see, is along these lines. What Jesus promises is not more moral code, for we will break it. Not improve liturgy, for our minds will continue to wander. Not mere threats, for threats by themselves do not capture rebellious hearts and minds. Not mere forgiveness, for we may stubbornly persist in doing things that require forgiveness. No, what Jesus promises is life-transforming power, a new origin, a new beginning, what he himself calls a new birth. If you are entirely satisfied with your life, if you live with such massive self-confidence that you feel you need neither God nor other people, none of this will make much sense. In fact, you may find what Jesus says insulting. In that case, you will probably walk away, and I must tell you that you are in terrible danger. But if you are beginning to see that you need power from God himself to change direction and start over with new vitality provided by God's own Spirit, then please pay special attention to the biblical material unpacked in the next few minutes. It's a great pleasure to be back with you. We're at the halfway point in this series. The Bible storyline, we have discovered, has set up, from the opening chapters of Genesis, a massive tension. Cosmic in scope, but descending all the way down to the level of the individual. The tension is grounded in the fact that God made everything good. God himself, the Creator, is different from the creation, but all that he made was, initially, God-centered and good. But the very nature of evil is tied to rebellion against this God. And we tried to see how this is depicted in Genesis 3. And with this desire to challenge God, to become God ourselves, to usurp to ourselves the prerogatives that belong only to the Creator, come all of the social evils, the horizontal evils that we know. With everybody wanting to be at the center of the universe, there can only be strife. Now, I know full well that nobody goes around saying, I'm at the center of the universe. I know that. Yet, if I were to hold up your high school or college graduation class photo and say, here's your graduation class photo, whose face do you look for first? Or suppose you have a really good knockdown, drag-em-out argument, one of the 1 in 10 year types, and you go away from it seething. You remember all the things you could have said, all the things you should have said, all the things you would have said if you had only thought of them fast enough. And then you replay the whole thing in your mind. Who wins? I've lost many arguments in my time. I've never lost a rerun. Because all of these things are small indexes of how we want to prevail, we want to control, we want to be at the center. And even God, if he, she, or it exists, jolly well better serve me or I'll find another one, thank you. So you have the beginning of all idolatry. But if our life has come from God, and now we rebel against him, what do we have but death? Yet the God of the Bible, instead of wiping out rebels, in his sovereign mercy, he operates in a variety of ways. Yes, there is judgment, but he does some spectacular things. He calls out one man, Abraham, and his family, flawed through and through, but to begin the process of starting a new humanity in a covenant, an agreement with him that that anticipates what God is going to do ultimately to save men and women drawn from every tongue and tribe and nation around the world. In due course, he shows what good law should be, how there needs to be sacrifice for sin. If the entailment of rebellion and sin, of being cut off from the Creator, is death, then does not God's justice require some kind of death, even while this God forgives the sinner? And so we witness the beginning of the sacrificial system as it was set up under the Old Covenant, with God eventually promising in due course a Redeemer, someone from the Davidic line, the line of kings set up about 1000 BC under King David. And yet as the promises unfold in the Old Testament, this ultimate Davidite, this ultimate Davidic king, is more than just one more person with David's genes. For we are given glimpses that we recite with pleasure at Christmas. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. He shall reign on the throne of his father David. Of the increase of his kingdom there will be no end. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. With an array of biblical texts promising a Davidic king who is nevertheless identified with God himself. So we glance at some of the Old Testament promises that look forward to the time when, in the last passage we looked at last week, the Word, God's own self-expression, who is himself God, in the complexity of one God, nevertheless Father and Son, the Son becoming a human being, living for a while among us. He became flesh, to use the Bible's language. And in becoming flesh, he ultimately became the one who is the perfect locus of grace and truth, we saw. No one has seen God at any time, but we have seen Jesus. Do you want to know what God looks like? Well, not physically, and yet if you want to know what he's like, if you want to know what his characteristics are, what his attributes are, how he behaves, how he thinks, how he interacts with people, look at Jesus. So in his gospel, he says to one of his own followers, "Have I been with you such a long time, Philip, and yet you have not known me? He who has seen me has seen the Father." Here is a God who has disclosed himself. He's the God who is there, but he's disclosed himself. And he's named not only with the names he takes on himself in the Old Testament, and he's named not only with his attributes as they're described in story and action and word and proverb and the like. He's finally named as the God-man, this Jesus. Yahweh saves, the one who comes to save his people from their sins. But precisely how does this help? So he's come. God is named. The God who is there has disclosed himself. What we need, granted the tension that sweeps right through the whole Bible, we need, first of all, ourselves to be reconciled to God. We need that. Second, we must not only be reconciled to him, but we must be morally transformed, or else we just keep on rebelling and doing it again and again and again. And third, all the effects of sin must somehow be reversed and overcome.